Hello and welcome to our event titled Preventing the Unknown, Reimagining Cybersecurity. During unprecedented times where every organization has rolled out work from home, security challenges lie at every corner. Business organizations are accelerating the adoption of technologies such as cloud, mobility, and the Internet of Things. And this together is symbolic of a progressive reliance on technology, which has equally opened up a very wide new gamut of security crimes and threats. I am Arjun Vishwanathan, your host and Chief Research Officer at Strategic, and I welcome each of you to what clearly promises to be an exciting event, replete with impactful insights and immersive discussions. I'm here to set the context for the event with this keynote and walk you through a few insights. So without further ado, let me pull up a few slides and walk you through what we in the analyst world are clearly seeing as the key security imperatives that organizations must follow. My keynote is titled Reimagining Security from Zero Sum to Zero Trust. Let me also walk you through what we as analysts are clearly seeing out there. And the world that we know has changed in a fashion as never before. And while I'm not going to read each of these out to you, it should suffice to say that more than 3.2 million records were exposed in the 10 biggest data breaches in the first half of 2020 alone. Enough to say a lot about the state of cybersecurity across what we clearly know as the borderless world. There's been a 37% increase in cyber attacks in India in the first quarter of 2020. We are all aware of the fact that 1.5 billion data points of Indian citizens was exposed in the Aadhaar data breach a couple of years back. Equally so, routers account for 75% of infected devices in all IoT attacks and connected devices attacks. But I think the one data point that really stands out in my mind is one that talks about the future, a future which is fairly here, clear and present, is that by 2024, the United Nations will have evolved to that level of maturity in this borderless world to be able to endorse an internet blockade as an economic sanction. Interesting, isn't it? Which is why it prompted us to kind of look at what the anatomy of the threat landscape is in its evolutionary form. Is that cybersecurity threats are no longer what they used to be even a few years back, or maybe even last year, because the overall attack surface is expanding from devices to applications to connected everything. Augmented and virtual reality and mobility continue to be extremely susceptible to cyber attacks. Cyber attacks by themselves are getting more sophisticated, come with a lot more finesse, and obviously without warning, with manifestations in malware, zero-day attacks, spear phishing, social engineering, and so on and so forth. These cyber attacks are no longer just individual backgrounds. They come in an automated format with well-financed cybersecurity backgrounds that call for a greater level of agility, adaptiveness, and response from Indian industry and industry in general. Extended vulnerabilities in organizations' IT environments are also clear sentinel issues that call for greatest robust strategic planning that will determine how secure an organization is. And last but not the least, something that should be of imperative and critical importance to all organizations by themselves is the inavailability or the unavailability, really, pardon me, of skilled professionals who can shape, view, and therefore respond to a wide variety of cybersecurity threats. Which brings us really to what this is leading to, because this leads to very severe and several security challenges for organizations, not least manifested in the security of the management of security really in hybrid environments. As more and more organizations move to hybrid architectures, the security imperatives become that much more critical for organizations to look at from the point of view of leveraging data capital to its utmost potential. The whole concept of identity and access management, again, is something that is very critical for organizations to take cognizance of. Of course, I did mention this earlier, is also that perhaps somewhere a limited visibility of diverse dispersed workloads and hybrid environments also leads organizations to be that much more susceptible to security threats and cyber breaches. On the other side of the spectrum, really, I'd like to bring your and take your attention to the fact that the retention and skilling of in-house security professional is a must if we are to take on the challenges of what promises to clearly be a set of uncertain futures. There's got to be, for organizations, effective security sourcing and to be able to look at those kinds of solutions and platforms that are not just holistic but comprehensive in their ability to encompass the entire organization in its overarching capabilities. And last but not the least, for organizations that are marching towards transformational value at an enterprise-wide level, the risks that are posed in compliance and risk management cannot be underscored enough. Which is why I'm here to tell you that increasingly, we as analysts of Strategy Inc. are viewing and observing the fact that there is an increased move to the whole concept of platforms and holistic comprehensive solution of security at a platformized level. Because the degradation of the security parameter by itself, despite concerted efforts to move to cloud, increase numbers and types of devices that are created, and the need for different tool sets is making it that much more simplistic for organizations in their move towards platforms and security platforms that offer a comprehensive security solution. In many cases, these tool sets could be point products directed at solving particular challenges, and these challenges are numerous and far too many. The quest for best of breed, of course, is a concept that all of us today, each of you, I as well, acknowledge as being very, very useful for creating complexity, but one that perhaps is also weakening security infrastructures. And last but not the least, today, many of these point products are being incorporated into larger product sets, which really is giving and causing the entire move to platforms. The rise of the platforms essentially is a trend that we have been observing, where Indian industry seeks and is perhaps mandated to consolidate security platforms to take care and take advantage of the economies of scale and close integrations that present themselves to organizations that are increasingly susceptible by virtue of data capital, IP, and of course, brand value, and therefore requiring cohesive, comprehensive, and holistic security solutions and platforms that will not just take care of the security threats of today, but will also help us march forward more confidently and with belief to an uncertain future. Ladies and gentlemen, I was Arjun Vishwanathan, Chief Research Officer at Strategy Inc. Thank you for joining me. Please stay tuned. The segments ahead, I promise, will be very, very immersive and impactful with their insights. I would like to take a second pause here, request you at the end of the event, do please take a few minutes off to fill the feedback form. There is just a few short questions. The feedback form and your feedback really help us improve future events for their content and the event structure. We thank you for your positive testimonials and feedback regarding this event. Thank you. Good day. Stay tuned.
Hi, very good morning, everybody. Today, we are in this webinar sponsored by Checkpoint. The title theme is Cyber and Remote Working Controls, which are paramount for IT/ITES post-COVID. This is the theme for today's panel discussion that we are all here with, and I'm glad to introduce to you three very eminent cybersecurity experts that we have in this panel. Firstly, Priya Kanduri, Vice President of Next Gen Cybersecurity Research, Development and Innovation at Happiest Minds. Thank you, Priya, for joining us today.
Thank you, Santanu. Glad to be here.
Secondly, I'll introduce Rishi Rajpal. Rishi is the Vice President and Global Head of Cybersecurity at Concentrix. a large business process organization globally present, and Rishi leads again the whole cybersecurity initiative for all their global locations and multiple centers, thousands of employees across the globe. So Rishi, thank you for joining us today.
Hey, thanks, Shantanu. Glad to be here.
Pleasure. And last but not the least, we are fortunate to have with us an APJ expert, Gary Gardiner, who's the Asia Pacific and Japan security engineering leader from Check Point. So Gary, thank you for joining us. We really look forward to some, I would say, global perspective, thoughts, and best practices, advice, and success stories from you.
My absolute pleasure to be here.
Thank you. Thanks, everybody. So let's get started. We have about 25 to 30 minutes time available with us. So I'll start with Priya, if I may. So my first question to each of you in that sequence, Priya, Rishi, and Gary, will be more around what changes you have observed in your respective fields over the last 3-4 months. So all of us, we know what we have experienced. The way I see broadly the changes that's happening now is we all went through this phase of heightened remote working, work from home, and remote collaboration centric business continuity, business operations in whatever form, shape we could continue. So that's caught all of us as a abrupt disruption. But as each country or each, I would say, business organization is in a gradual phase of unlocking and trying to get back to business. What I see business leaders prioritizing is about how do they relaunch, how do they revive, and how do they reboot their businesses to bring it back to as much close to normalcy, right? So I know what has taken a setback over the last 4 months. It's not easy. It's a time-bound, stepwise effort, but that's what business leaders are prioritizing as to how do they jump back. And when it comes to technology leaders such as yourselves, I think technology leaders have the toughest job. Why? Because on one side, they are prioritizing or inspecting very, very closely how do they improve upon the current levels of business continuity arrangement? How do they reevaluate their digital readiness, cloud first approach or digital first approach of the organization? Is there some net new initiatives, very quick, tactical, I would say maybe 60-day, 90-day plan that needs to be implemented to make the organization more agile, more flexible, to be able to better deal with such abrupt disruptions, which we all faced, experienced in an unprecedented manner. So while those new initiatives are what they are reevaluating, on the other hand, these business leaders are also challenged with less and less diminishing resources, if I may say. So I would say renewed inspection on net new budgets. Can they drive newer efficiencies from existing technology contracts, solution and services contracts they have with existing vendors? Can they look at optimizing more productivity, efficiency from their people and resources? So on one side, how do they continue to innovate, and with tighter or lesser resources? That's the dichotomy, that's the challenge technology leaders face. So with that as a context, I'll start with you, Priya, what new trends around cybersecurity or solution services adoption that you've observed in the last 3 to 4 months?
Yeah, Santanu, last couple of months have been very interesting for cybersecurity professionals in more than one way. We all know there's current pandemic and complete shift in terms of how we are working, how the employees are accessing critical data, etc. So the first one month was probably all about just keeping the bulbs on. There were it's all about business continuity, ensuring business continuity, and ensuring everybody is able to work remote. That was all about it. So levels were compromised a little bit. So I deal with customers across geographies, so it's all about having them up and running. So allowing personal laptop usage, etc. But then later on, it was all about bringing controls back, And key focus is, it's not a shift, it's just reprioritizing the initiatives and where the efforts are going to go. A lot of migrations to cloud, because that enables security as well as enables flexibility in terms of remote access, etc. And then a lot of emphasis on endpoint security, because of course everybody is working from home and data access from anywhere and everywhere. It's more than work from home, work from anywhere. So having all kinds of endpoint controls, mobile access management, device management, DLP, encryption, that's where, and EDR, that's where a lot of focus has been. That's the other shift, though it's been there when everybody works from office, it's within the premises of secure network. That's the other change. And now the pandemic has brought in a shift in terms of a lot of employee monitoring is happening, productivity monitoring, well-being monitoring. So there's a lot of data privacy aspects also that come into picture. It's our own employee data as well as the customers' data that they have access to. So there's a lot of focus again on data privacy, which has always been there in the background, but it was more of compliance driven earlier. Now it is completely data protection driven. That's the other shift. And finally, entire risk and compliance landscape has become digital. So digital audits is the trend. How do we completely remotely do compliance audits, risk assessments? How can we enable remote digital audits? That's the other shift. So these are the 4 or 5, I wouldn't say complete shift, because these initiatives have always been there, but more around prioritizing of efforts, prioritizing of your investments. These are the areas.
Excellent. Thank you, Priya. Coming to you, Rishi, if we zoom into ITS business operations landscape, and in that sense also into the associated cybersecurity ecosystem, what's been your experience of changes? What's new over last 4 months?
Yeah, Shantanu, and I think Priya touched upon all the technical aspects that we went through as a journey as people moved their premises from office to home. So over and above, over and above the technology that we were talking about, visibility, which is important when people are working from home. But cyber threats, if you talk about, they loomed in. We've heard of some figures which are like mind-boggling: 600% increase in phishing, domains coming up like in thousands and thousands, which were lures for people in the name of COVID-19. So the job is twofold, right? One is obviously to make sure that employees do the right thing with their endpoints and there is visibility, and then maintaining the backend cybersecurity posture to ensure there is prevention in place. But over and above technical aspects, I think the softer aspects were education and awareness for people. I think a lot of tools were rolled out in a very short span of time. For example, two-factor authentication for everyone. A lot of users were new. They were using two-factor for the first time. So a lot of reiteration of the message, how to use it right, and initial hiccups had to be dealt with. The new threats now, you're no longer being monitored in bricks and mortars, right? So how do we ensure that people do the right thing when they are not being watched, for that matter, right? So, and mental being, right? So people don't get stressed out while they're working in 4 walls. There's lack of social interaction, personal interactions. Mistakes are bound to happen when you are stressed. So there's a lot of focus on mental being over and above the technical aspects. So those are some of the focus area over and above the technical part of it.
Brilliant. So very resonate with what most of the large enterprises are experiencing. Coming to you, Gary, from a perspective of cybersecurity controls, tools, technology adoption, and seeing it from a lens of a solution provider, technology innovator around cybersecurity, where do you see, is there any shift or change over the last 3-4 months?
There has been a shift, obviously. This dynamic of what people are doing in and out of the network has changed completely. And what we did see was that a lot of our customers had some of the controls in place. You know, they would have some remote working going on. The real challenge for them was to take which was maybe 5 or 10% of their staff working remotely up to 90 or plus % of their staff working remotely. So a lot of the challenges that we saw from the last 4 months was just the capability to scale. So we saw some services moving to the cloud rapidly, and we saw some customers just expanding the capability of their VPN connectivity for remote access really quickly. And then there was other challenges on top of that. For example, if they were moving to mobile devices such as mobile phones and tablets and giving access to data that way, how they were actually going to secure that. So we saw a huge move to technologies around securing the devices themselves, and trying to take what security controls they had inside their network and put that onto the remote devices really quickly. And Priya kind of mentioned that as well when she was talking, is there was this really dramatic shift very quickly. Just get it done. We need people to be able to work. And then there was a moment of reflection where we've seen organizations go, okay, now how do we actually put the same level of controls that we have inside our network outside of our network? And we're seeing that more now where people have gone, okay, we've made this change. Is there anything that we did in a hurry that we shouldn't have really done and we should really go back and visit? So we're having a lot of conversations with customers around where they are now and where they want to be in, say, a year's time. Is this, as we say, is this the new normal? Do we want to have most of our staff working remotely now? Or do we, in a year's time, have most of our staff back in the network? And I'll speak personally from a Checkpoint perspective, and speaking to our CIO and our CTO, one of the biggest challenges that we had was our R&D team all work in Tel Aviv in Israel, and we were never allowed access to the code outside of the office. So they had to think of ways that they could get R&D to function from home. So, you know, it was a big challenge for us. I mean, we obviously got around it. We have that capability now, but that was just something that was never ever thought of. You know, where the code sits in Tel Aviv is a secure network. It's separated from every other network internally. So then they had to think, how do we do this? And I think we saw that with a lot of organizations where typically you would think of a remote access project maybe taking a year to implement, and they were doing it in a month. So it was very pleasant to see that the organizations themselves outside of the IT department were willing to be as flexible as they could be to allow people to execute as quickly as they needed to.
Brilliant. I think this first, I would say, round of answers really bring in a lot of, I would say, shift and change-oriented points. So Priya mentioned about renewed focus prioritization around controls such as DLP or data privacy, data protection, digital remote audits. Rishi mentioned about phishing attacks or cybersecurity risks going up 500%, 600% in some of them very, very targeted, organization specific, etc., etc. So two-factor authentication, and of course, one important angle is around education and awareness and also mental health, right? Working remotely all the time, balancing personal, professional, integrated life, not very easy for everybody. And Gary, I think this unique example you mentioned about, of course, scalability, cloud, VPN adoption, and shifting from a traditional corporate network bound controls to remote devices oriented controls, and in a short span of rapid time, space, agility, plus the example of how sort of Checkpoint internally devised a mechanism or approach of their R&D teams moving their, I would say, so very sensitive, confidential development codes beyond office into a remote working arrangement. Fantastic. So great set of new learning. I'm sure I'm summarizing for the benefit of our audience so that they pick up these golden nuggets and take it back from an experiential and practical usage standpoint. So second question to Priya is around a topic or a subject all of us have heard of, zero trust security, right? So while all of us have heard it, many of us are in various phases of implementing that kind of a zero trust security model. Priya, my question to you is, this is your experience, do guide us. While I understand it's a journey, it's an aspirational end state, the target goal seems to be shifting. And why? Because while you build some controls, while you implement certain checks and measures, new, I would say, flavor or types of threats, risks evolve in the horizon. So what would be the top three things you would recommend to our audience who are security or technology practitioners if they are planning about zero trust security?
Yeah. Santanu, again, zero trust security, it was there, like you said, at various stages of implementation with various enterprises, and it was at some point an aspirational stage, but not anymore. With, again, the current changing circumstances or changed circumstances, and where everybody is remote now, and tomorrow there will be a mix of users, some remote, some working from the offices, data being accessed from anywhere, users and devices connecting from anywhere. In the current situation, it just becomes the de facto standard. There's no two ways about it. All enterprises will have to think about it and move towards it. And it's not optional or a strategic aspiration anymore. So three key principles, if you ask me: keep zero trust in mind and make all provisions for zero trust while defining any IT or infra or security strategy. Keep application surface, reducing the application surface as much as possible while enabling any of the as part of the application strategy, and reduce the attack surface for the network. And there are many ways of achieving it, more than one ways of achieving it, but the principle is what should be quite strategic and de facto standard for everybody.
Excellent. Thank you, Priya. And in that connected note, Rishi, if I may come to you. So around this theme of zero trust, there is always an extended, I would say, topic of, okay, insider threat versus external threat. And you concentrates the nature of business that you lead, involves large number of employees and teams and multiple projects. Majority of them have lot of I would say, stringent rules, regulations around data privacy, data confidentiality, etc., client sensitive data, project specific sensitivities, etc. So what's your observation of the ratio, the mix between actual incidents which are an outcome of insider threat oriented risk versus external threats, and any recommendation of how effectively to manage insider threats?
Shantanu, so insider threats and outsider external threats both are on the rise as part of COVID-19. Obviously, the impact of an insider breach is much higher because obviously you trust the insiders as compared to outsiders, and there's a lot of investments being made to protect against the external threats. From an insider perspective, I think I divide insider threats into two, right? Intentional and unintentional. And unintentional is kind of human errors where I had no intentions of doing something. That is also on the rise because people are no longer working in a normal office environment. They're working from home. They might be working from a drawing room. They might be working from, I mean, may not be conducive to working, right? Because hours have increased and everything like that. So that's also on the rise. So basically, we need to just ensure that there is strong monitoring in place. Plus, zero trust as a concept, it is easier to make grounds up, but when you have an existing legacy setup, it has to be done in phases, right? So I would say there are multiple measures can be put in place for insider threats. I can tell you some models have gone for a toss. People were talking about user behavior analytics. People were saying that if you log in from 9 to 6 from this location, then this is your normal pattern. It is no longer a pattern anymore. People are logging all the time from home. So the new models had to be made. Step up authentications. If you are a little away from your normal behavior, how would you ask for extra level of authentications? And suddenly your tolerance towards any alert that comes in now has to go down because this is not, people may call it as a normal, but this new normal, but I would say this is not normal, right? So as you bring down your tolerance towards any alerts, coupled with your new models of user behavior analytics, uh, and you'll have to tackle insider threat. I would say that. And I mean, in summarize in a way, the insider threat in terms of uh, probability will be low, impact will be really high. From an external perspective, the threats are much higher in number in terms of, but you have adequate protection. So I think that's in a summarized way, Shantanu.
Excellent. And I get a new flavor of as much real-time tracking, behavioral changes, analytics, and associated action, if at all possible, technology-wise. That kind of a, I would say, input coming in from Rishi, and I'll take that clue to circle back with Gary here. Gary, specifically around zero trust security, around insider threat control management, and as much in real time. Uh, is there anything specific that you would want to highlight that Checkpoint is doing uniquely well?
Yeah, I mean, Checkpoint, obviously being a cybersecurity company, has a long raft of technology around zero trust. It's been in our methodology for many, many years that our technology is developed to be implemented into a zero trust framework and should be the bed of what a zero trust network should be. Now, to give you an example of what Checkpoint does, and I can talk from our own experiences, we have a raft of products around the capability for remote access. So I'm just looking at my laptop right now. And my laptop has on its client compliance checking, anti-malware, media encryption and port protection, has a firewall with application control, it has full disk encryption, has a remote access VPN, has capsule docs, which is data loss prevention. It has URL filtering, anti-bot technology, anti-ransomware and forensics, and threat emulation, which is sandboxing. All of that on my laptop. I have something very similar on my mobile phone. And tied into that, when we talk about zero trust, is we have identity protection. So Checkpoint looks at not just the device or not just the user. So I have to authenticate when I gain access to systems, but it also looks at the device I'm authenticating from. So we want to make sure that the user is trusted, but the device is also trusted as well. And if I'm connecting from an untrusted device, I get limited access. So I won't get access to the same level of information if I was coming from a trusted device. So we look at it from that perspective. And even then, once I gain access into our systems, I don't have access to everything again. There's controls in place at the level of access as to what I can gain access to. So, and that goes around DLP. And what Checkpoint does very well when it comes to this is, and we see this from, again, from insider threats, is educating users when they're doing something wrong. They might be doing something wrong, but for the right reason. So sharing some information outside of the organization from their device. And an example of that is if I send a job offer out to a candidate, because it has personal identifiable information in it, I get an alert from our DLP engine that goes, you're about to do something that's against corporate policy. If you need to do it, give me the reason and I will allow you to do it, but just note that this has been logged. So it's again about the user, if they're doing something and they're doing it for the right reason, but it's a mistake, they have the option to say, no, I don't want to do that. I didn't realize I was doing something wrong. So I think when we look at data and we look at it from the ITES vertical and the fact that data is everywhere now, the capability to educate users when they're doing something and just give them that checks and balance, but allow them to do it if it is corporate, they need to do it. Just again, brings in education. It makes sure that they're not doing something by mistake and they're not leaking data out of the organization in error. So I think those are the key fundamentals about why Checkpoint stands out around this. We have that zero trust mentality, but we also have the mentality of educating the end user at the same time to make sure that they understand when they're doing something wrong.
Very interesting. Thanks, Gary. So the golden nuggets I derive from this round of, I would say, Q&A with our experts is from Priya, 3 principles around zero trust security, from Rishi, insider threat being broken into intentional, unintentional, and how do you still manage behavioral changes or analytics as much real time? So that's where it sort of gets that granular. And from Gary, the golden nugget I take away is about I would say prioritize focus on both how trustable a device is, or are you accessing uh, data network information from a trusted device, and also around the user level trust. So device level trust, user level trust, and both being equally important. So coming to our last round of questions, I know I have an eye on the clock, so I'll be quick here. So back to you, Priya. Next generation security and innovation, right? So that's what uh, you specialize on, and we have deep respect around the cutting edge work that your team are leading on this. Tell us a little more about where does security, innovation, and roadmap move forward from here? Next 6 months, 12 months, 18 months, what do you expect new from a technology evolution standpoint around cybersecurity?
I would say a lot of, again, focus is going to go towards strengthening and enhancing the existing threat hunting as well as threat detection capabilities. So bringing in AI, ML driven detection techniques and faster incident resolution as well. There are a lot of efforts going in, and in the next 12 to 18 months, I'm sure everybody would reach a stage where all the L1 and L2 monitoring tasks are automated. L3, L4 will always need manual intervention, but about 60 to 70% automated incident resolution is where the focus is going to be in terms of innovating or enhancing what enterprises are currently doing. And then also faster and better detection, and that would only happen when we bring as much of intelligence from external world as possible. So advanced threat intelligence integrations with the current security controls is another area. For example, bring in dark web monitoring aspects, do reputation analysis, and also, as Gary mentioned, threat emulation at the perimeter level, use zero-day detection techniques, sandboxing, all of that would again become de facto standard, and that's where there will be a lot of effort. And then the cloud security, it's been there for the last 10 years, but now it's become a reality where enterprises are almost everybody is in a hybrid cloud situation. And hybrid cloud security, the end-to-end integration across the cloud platforms as well as on-premise is not going away. That will also continue to stay. So bringing synergies between all of the network surface is another area. There are multiple technologies, but then the comprehensively making all of them work together is another challenge. That's what is going to take a lot of effort. Zero trust we've already talked about. That's a de facto standard, and that is another area of enhancement or efforts that are going to go in. And finally, data governance. It's data security, data governance, data privacy, data protection have been they've come to the forefront in the last 2-3 years. But then again, the expanse where data is stored is also multiplying year by year. There are data lakes, big data platforms, data on the cloud, data at endpoints, data in the emails. So integrated data governance is where a lot of work has to happen or will happen across the enterprises.
Very interesting. So taking automation, AI, and ML-led innovation research, I would say, uh, as much automating proactive controls, response management, impact assessment, governance. So Rishi, I'll come to you uh, associated to this topic. So again, as you lead a large team, multi-country, multi-location, I'm sure the volume of security alerts and breaches, or the sheer volume of information that comes from multiple tools, processes, systems in your landscape is enormous, right? So while automation and I would say leveraging AI ML to maximally manage it, control it in an orchestrated, automated manner is important. But of course, there is also a fine balance of to what extent you want to rely on tools-based decision making versus human judgment-based decision making. So again, and there is no right or wrong answer here, but I request your experiential advice here, how to draw a balance between this tools-based, automation-based approach versus human judgment-based intervention.
Yeah, Shantanu. So basically, and tools are learning from humans only, right? So, and at the end of the day, tools learn from humans, and then we say that humans have become redundant, right? So humans will not be redundant. Uh, Only the routine tasks which are common do do stuff on a daily basis will be automated. Obviously, they'll be complemented by AI and ML, but I think the core of security will still be managed by humans, and especially when you divide your CDOC into, generally people call it as L1, L2s, L3s. That's a common term in the industry. You can really, with orchestration, with automation, you can really eliminate, I would say, significant portions of L1s. You will still need L2, L3s for some decision makings uh, and for creating business rules. So that will still be required. From an investment perspective, while Priya would have covered most of it, and that's happening as we see, it's not, I would say, rocket science. It has to go. I would see significant investments being made on mitigating controls from a physical security perspective. We will see a strong merger of physical and cybersecurity. It will no longer be a separate department because the same concepts will apply there. Same alerting mechanism will be there from a physical security perspective. So, we have all the controls in place. What if a person clicks a picture of a screen, right? So there'll be a lot of, I would say, focus on mitigating those risks as people work from home on monitoring part, whatever you call it. Like you may call it as proctoring, you may call it as whatever. So there'll be investments made. Right now, people may be relying on administrative controls, people signing NDAs, teleworker agreement, and secured collaboration. Security should not be looked as, we should be enabler. So we have to promote secured collaboration. We cannot say that you cannot have this tool because it is insecure. You can have another tool which is secure and use this for your collaboration, because collaboration will be key as people work from home. So that's some of my takes.
Excellent, thank you. So coming back, Gary, for sharing with us from Checkpoint's standpoint, what new innovation, future roadmap that technology buyers can look forward to from Checkpoint over next 1 to 2 years?
Yeah. So the ones I can share, like Checkpoint is looking at, as I mentioned, a holistic approach to cybersecurity. We don't see the data center network and the cloud network and the mobile and the endpoint being any different anymore. To talk on about the AI and machine learning and threat analysis and things like that, Checkpoint is working great strides in the capability of the holistic approach of a network to be able to understand what's happening inside the network and using machine learning and artificial intelligence to understand that. What we're also doing and making great strides in is around integrating IT security and IoT security, because we do see that there is a massive blend going on there. And we have been looking at this for years. Certainly in the healthcare side of things, we have done a lot of research and development, and we will be bringing out very shortly the capability, and we've done it to a certain extent, the capability to understand the network itself, see what's happening inside the network, and then apply policies based on what we see. And trying to take, I guess, the human element out of that, because we understand if you think about a network when it was just a user and a device connecting to the network, it was easy to control, but now you're getting multiple devices. So you can have 4 or 5, up to 10, 15 devices per user connecting. And then you take into all of the smart devices that you have, smart light bulbs, for example. If you have a building with 20,000 light bulbs. There's 20,000 devices that you never had on your network before that are now on your network. And you don't want to have a human being intervening to provide a security policy to that. So we're doing a lot around automating security policies to take the human element out of it, obviously with the level of control that an organization would expect. So looking at that from industrial control networks, from healthcare networks, and from the Internet of Things for office networks. So we're doing a lot around that. We are looking at the capabilities to shift left when you look at the cloud as well. That's coming up very soon, is the capability to look at in runtime what is actually happening around the threats that are happening, the code that's being deployed inside the cloud. Because we do see that the very dynamic nature of the cloud environment is something that needs to be secured. And it was touched on before, we do not want network security to be a hindrance to an organization doing its job, especially when it moves into the cloud environment. The agility that customers want from our security products now and our capability to secure it is unheard of compared to what it was even 10 years ago. So providing agility around the security inside cloud environments is something that will be Checkpoint is developing more. We have some capabilities around that now, but that is certainly something that we're focusing our roadmap on for the next 12 to 18 months.
Excellent. And the common thread from all three of you I carry back as a golden nugget is, I would say, continued emphasis, innovation around security becoming a stronger enabler and not lack of security, not becoming an impediment to growth, success, innovation that a business typically strives for from quarter to quarter or year to year. So with that, I think we come to the end of this panel discussion. It's a privilege to have Priya, Rishi, Gary, all three of you in this panel. A bunch of very, very insightful golden nuggets, as I call it, or pearls of wisdom around best practices of technology, best practices of implementation-oriented learnings, or what's coming up for future where security practitioners genuinely need help to make security as a business enabling or a stronger business enabling function than ever before. So all these collective points and thoughts and insights, I'm sure our audience would have enjoyed. So thanks each of you, and to our audience, stay tuned for more. This webinar has a few more interesting, very interesting sessions around a keynote from Checkpoint coming up, one more BFSI-centric panel discussion. So stay tuned for more insightful sessions as part of the webinar. Thanks, everybody. Have a great day.
Thank you so much, Santan. It's a pleasure being here. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.
Hello and welcome to this keynote session. Today we're going to be talking about zero trust and the capabilities of an organization to actually apply zero trust to their networks, their environments, and their remote users. But first of all, what is zero trust? Now, most of us, when we travel, when we can get to travel after the COVID-19 situation, don't realize that we are actually going through a series of zero trust exercises, and an airport is a prime example of this. So if I was to say to you, in December 25th of 2009, there was a flight from Amsterdam to Detroit. And on that flight, there was the underwear bomber. Now, what he had done is he had snuck some chemicals in his underwear onto the plane and tried to detonate them in the toilet. Thankfully for the flight and for the passengers on that plane, it didn't work. But what that did do is it led to a fundamental change in airport security. It led to the fact that we now have body scanners in airports. So even when you look at a zero trust environment like an airport, there are things that need to change on a periodic basis based on changing of technology, changing of the way that the threat actors are attacking us. But when you think about an airport, we have to go through a lot of strict authentication before we actually even get on a plane. So it is effectively a least privilege strategy. So when we arrive at the airport, you get into the concourse here, and everyone's allowed to arrive at the airport. Doesn't matter. You can get on the train, you can get on the bus and a taxi, and you arrive at the airport. But when you think about when you actually go to check in, what are the things that the airline actually does? So now it's the airline's responsibility to make sure that you're actually getting on the right plane. So they check your identity, they check your documents to make sure you can travel. Then they ask you about your luggage. Did you pack it yourself? Is there anything explosive or flammable inside in the luggage? All of these questions are starting to build up a trust profile of you as a traveler to make sure that you can actually travel on the plane. The next phase is what we'd probably think about as least privilege strategy and micro-segmentation. Is you have your plane ticket, you have your travel documents like your passport, you then have to go through immigration. And at this point, this is when you are actually getting checked to make sure that you are who you say you are by the enforcement agencies based in that country. So again, there's another check, there's another way to make sure that you are who you say you are. And this happens more all the time when we're getting on a plane. And people accept that that's just the way that it happens. The next point is once you've actually gotten through immigration, before you actually get onto the plane again, your identity, your plane ticket, your seats is all checked again. And you're checked off to make sure that you are actually getting on that plane. Again, we are following least privilege. So when you arrive at the airport, anyone can arrive at the airport, then only certain people can check into the flight. Only the people who are traveling can go through immigration, and then only the people who are traveling on that specific flight, even though there's more people in the airport, can actually get onto that plane. But even when you think about it, when you get onto the plane, there is still least privilege. There is still only areas in which the crew of the plane, the flight crew of the plane, can actually access, such as the cockpit and the rest areas on the plane, whereas as passengers, we are allowed to roam freely to a certain extent around the main body of the plane, but we have an assigned seat and they expect us to take that seat. So again, there is still a level of least privilege applied even once you're on the aircraft. Now, when we think about applying this to a network environment, to a security environment, and how we see each other monitoring our network environments, visibility is a key. We talk about this all the time when we speak about security. If you can't see what's going on, then you haven't got the capability to understand what is actually happening in your network. And in this example, what's actually happening inside the airport. You know, we have facial recognition scanners, we have CCTV, we have the capability to see where people are across the whole of the airport. And again, the quality of that intelligence has a huge impact on our capabilities to apply a zero trust infrastructure into our networks. And to follow on from that, you can't protect what you cannot see. Now, prevention is critical. Now, if you think about it from an airport or an airline perspective, being able to stop something that could be catastrophic to an aircraft, getting onto an aircraft is key. Prevention is key. Now, there is a strict protocol for every luggage that should be scanned for threats, and even when there's nothing wrong with that passenger, you still are not trusted until we have scanned your luggage. And as I mentioned before, even before the luggage is scanned, you're getting asked those questions to make sure that you haven't inadvertently done something that you shouldn't have done. Now, if you think about it, there are passengers with no security awareness and who will unknowingly carry dangerous items in their luggage. Again, this is why we actually check every piece of luggage. And this is checkpoints mentality when it comes to checking network traffic. It is making sure that it is prevented first, not detected, and then remediated afterwards. Because again, as I mentioned, if you think about it in an airline perspective, we want to make sure that a malware doesn't get onto a desktop, doesn't cause anything malicious, and then has to be remediated. We want to make sure that we protect the laptop, the mobile, the endpoint before it actually gets infected and stop it from happening in the first place. So when we think about this, we have to think about three critical objectives. We don't want to have a false negative. We don't want to detect something that isn't malicious and say that it is. We want a low false positive. We want to make sure that when we are telling people that there is something that is wrong, that we don't pick up on that. And the last one is a seamless user experience. As we all know, anyone who's worked in security, if security becomes cumbersome to an end user, they will try and find ways around it. Now, different airports have different experiences. I live in Singapore, and Singapore Changi Airport has a very good seamless user experience from check-in through security to boarding the plane. Now, some airports are different like that, but what it does do is mean that Changi Airport has been voted the best airport for 7 years in a row because of its user experience. And that's what we need to be achieving when we're putting forward a user experience inside security, inside our networks. It needs to be, the security process needs to be there so it's well understood by the user community. Checkpoint does this. We have something called user check. So when the user is doing something that is against corporate policy, they are notified the reason why. Now, there may be a valid reason for them to send something to a third party, for example, if we're talking about data loss prevention, but we give them the opportunity to self-remediate, but it's logged, it's monitored. Again, tying back into the visibility capability that we need. So one of the things that we need to think about is how do we deploy complex security and avoid any security gaps? And we talk to all of our customers all the time around implementing a zero trust approach using, point solutions, using a infrastructure, that will allow for not having to use point solutions. Because when you use point solutions, they can lead to a complex deployment. And what that can do is lead to inherent security gaps because they're not sharing the same threat intelligence across multiple devices. So let's take a look at Checkpoint's mentality and Checkpoint's infrastructure around zero trust. What we want to do is to be able to provide zero trust principles across everything that you want to do. So the devices, your workloads, your networks, your data, and your people. It has to be centrally managed using a single console and a unified policy. Again, being able to provide a security policy on your networks that applies to devices, that applies to workloads, and applies to your data and your people, no matter where they are. And it needs to be preventative. We need to be able to make sure that we are stopping bad things from happening before they happen and making sure that it doesn't get a foothold inside your organization. And that's the security model that Checkpoint puts in place. It is a fundamental and unified policy that sits across all of these tenets you can see here, but also when we think about orchestration and automation and the visibility and analytics, we take all of that and we put all of that together. So let's quickly have a look at, say, for example, workload security. We want to be able to extend our visibility and make policies adaptable to what's actually happening. So when we think about things like microsegmentation, we want to be able to provide threat prevention, compliance, static code analysis, runtime analysis, and vulnerability scanning to that segmentation across any of the aspects that you have inside your workload security. So whether it's Kubernetes, we don't care. We shift our security left. We define the cloud assets intended for protection. So for example, it's a financial application. We identify all of the workloads that relate to this cloud asset. We group them together and we label them and we say, okay, here we have the financial application, and then we define the security based on that financial application. Now, if we go back to the analogy of an airport is filled with IoT devices. Now, a lot of these are not owned by the airport authority that runs the airport. They could be run by airlines or third-party security companies. But what we need to do is auto-generate a policy for every device. So if someone plugs in a new security camera or a new smart TV or a new printer or a new smartphone into the network, we need to be able to say, okay, what is that device? We identify that device. We say, okay, it's a smart TV. Smart TVs get this security policy by default. Because what we do not need is we do not need a security administrator to have to identify that and then apply the security policy. That takes too long. We want to be able to make sure that we take that zero trust capability and we automate it. So we block unauthorized access from IoT devices, and we only allow the devices and the protocols that they were designed to use. Now, if we look at zero trust from a user perspective, we need to look at user-aware access control. And Checkpoint has the capability to do this, where we look at the security posture of the device, we look at the security posture of the individual connecting, and then we decide what access they get based on that security posture. So if it's someone connecting from a mobile phone that's not a trusted mobile phone, they don't get the same level of access they would do as if they were connecting from a trusted laptop or a trusted PC on a trusted network. So again, we look at it from that perspective, and we need to be able to make sure that we tie the identity to the device. And lastly, we want the seamless user experience. As I mentioned before, we want to be able to look at when someone is being phished and they try to connect on something that is malicious, we tell them it's not what they should be doing. And it comes up and says, okay, hold on a second. You got a phishing email. The phishing email duped you into connecting to what was a fake Office 365 site. We have blocked that and we've told you why. And they have the capability to send a report if they want to, if it is incorrect. So we are allowing the user, if we feel that they need to, they can self-remediate. It's a key aspect of what we believe at Checkpoint. So Checkpoint's way of implementing this is called Infinity. It is a consolidated zero trust security architecture, and it has been at the center of Checkpoint's ethos with its security model for many years. So what does it actually mean? What we're talking about here is the capability to provide security across your cloud, your mobile, your network, including your perimeter and data centers, with segmentation and your endpoints. Now, this is all managed through a single consolidated security management platform. And the key importance to this is Threat Cloud. What Threat Cloud does is it takes feeds from industry, it takes feeds from all of the Checkpoint capabilities that we have out there, and applies that into a single data lake with artificial intelligence and machine learning, which then allows us to do things like campaign hunting. What that campaign hunting does is we can see where we see different campaigns, and the threat actors are using the same technologies and the same ways of actually trying to dupe people. And we can tie those campaigns together and we can identify them before they've even been identified as being malicious. And we can then apply that technology across all of the technology that you see here listed on the screen. What that does allow us to do is it allows us to share the information. So for example, if there is a customer of ours in the US that gets it, we detect a zero-day attack. Once it gets into Threat Cloud, which is moments later, and we say, yes, this is definitely a zero-day, we then share that across the entire Checkpoint suite of products shared with all of our customers. So the next time it attacks someone in Singapore, we already know that that's a malicious packet or that's a malicious payload, and we don't have to worry about it. It's already there. It's already there, and we will block that from happening. And just to give you an idea, this is some of the vendors that the cybersecurity ecosystem that Checkpoint works with. As you can see, we have a lot of partners that we work with. So if you have any of this technology, we can look at the ways that we can share our infrastructure, share our technology with what you already have. We understand that networks are complicated and complex, and that we have to work with other vendors out there. So you can see our capabilities across cloud, across mobile, our management platform, and our network. And more importantly, in the middle there, Threat Cloud, we are sharing our threat intelligence, and we are even sharing our threat intelligence with some of our competitors inside the Cyber Threat Alliance. But we get feeds from many, many places. We have a research team. If you go to our research blog, if you go to checkpoint.com and have a look at our research blog, you can see a lot of what our research team are doing and the different ways that we are applying the research that we do to providing security. So I would like to summarize. Zero trust is an essential strategy for every organization. As you saw with the example is with the airport, as you go through an airport, you're going through different levels of identification and verification of who you are before you actually get on a plane. So an airport is a prime example of where zero trust works well. And we have to look at that from our network capabilities. It's got to be practical and easy to consume. If you make it difficult, the end users are not going to want to do this. They are going to find other ways to get around the security controls you're putting in place, or even worse, you're going to hinder their capability to do their job, which is not going to make your organization effective. And as I mentioned, Checkpoint Infinity, it is a consolidated zero trust security architecture that has been around for years. Checkpoint has implemented it themselves in their own organization, and we have a lot of customers who are implementing this technology inside their own environments as we speak. So we have this capability right now. And if you want, have a chat with one of your Checkpoint representatives in your region, and we can come and give you a demonstration of how the Checkpoint Infinity architecture can apply zero trust into your network. And with that, I'd like to say thank you very much for your time. It's been a pleasure talking to you today. Thank you.
Welcome to the panel discussion for Checkpoint BFSI panel, Cyber and Anti-Fraud Controls Paramount for BFSI post-COVID times. I would like to introduce the panelists here. We have Mr. Kersey Tavadia. He is the CIO for Bombay Stock Exchange. Welcome, sir. We have Ms. P.B. Babita. She is from CISO from CSB Bank Limited. Thank you, ma'am, for coming on board. And we have Hitesh Pathak from the Security Engineering Team Leader from Checkpoint Software Technologies, Apex Sales. Welcome you, Hitesh. So my first question goes to Mr. Kersey. As the CIO for the largest stock exchange, what are the top 3 challenges you faced during the lockdown period when the employees were made to work from home, and what steps did you initiate to overcome it?
Well, good afternoon, everybody. And the first, I would say, I would not face, it was a challenge, but it was more of a task that we had to accomplish, because as an exchange, we always had something of BCP lined up as a process. Okay? But we had never thought about where people will not be able to come out. See, we had all the contingency plans of doing all types of BCP drills, but in no drill that use case, what you call, that people will not be allowed to come out of their home. You always say, what is the, always it was always a primary site, near site, alternate site. So we had always alternate sites, alternate people. But here, the case was there were people, everything is there, but people are not there. So this was the biggest challenge. But since we had this work, and for an exchange, till this incident happened, this work from home was not considered as a healthy sign. It was not technically possible, but we said we should never do it. So there was never, in fact, in earlier times we had said, do we have a work from home policy? And we had to say, we don't encourage them, but there is no work from home policy. So that was the reality. So it is the mindset of people were also the same, that we always had to come to offices. Nobody had even, so more than the technical, it was one of the mindset issues that people were all scared. How will you work? Like, if you don't come to office, like, how are you going to work? That's why we had to train them. And like, when we started doing the VPN connections, people were not having challenges of, that's why we realized, though we were one of the first ones to do a multi-factor VPN connectivity. So from the day one, we said, okay, we have to make it. So there were challenges that people had not updated their mobile numbers, because nobody thought ever that we had to make those things challenges. So updating the mobile numbers of everybody onto the system. So all those things, like, these are all administrative challenges that we had to take care of it. Secondly was the bandwidth availability at the end users was a challenge. Most of the times, see, we took a very conscious call from a security perspective not to take out the office devices out. Okay, many other institutions chose to give the desktops to people's homes, or whatever the end user computing devices people were taking home. We took a conscious call not to take out any hardware from the office out. Like, if it's a desktop meant for office, it will remain in office. We made all possible arrangements of giving laptops wherever they could. We also went to the extent of asking people to bring their own devices and giving a simple tool to connect it securely. See, the idea was to maintain the speed of the data, the processing piece of it, and the security. So once the data goes outside your organization, there's very little control that you have over the device, because in the office it's a very, very sanitized environment. Once it goes to your home, it's not a sanitized environment any longer. As sanity from a piece from the hygiene, from the way equipments are maintained in the office versus the equipments. I'm not saying somebody's house is unhygienic, or from a machine's perspective. So we had to make sure that we consciously did not allow anybody to take out any desktops. So, and even till today, we have not allowed. So what we have done is we have taken the remote and we are trying to give our VDI concept is we are trying to bring people to the individual desktop the way they are working from their home. And that's how they are able to work and do all the daily tasks very smoothly. See, there is no processing delays. Otherwise, normally if you run any jobs or something, most of the time, because the data is flowing over the internet outside your home and again going back to your data center, we never wanted data to travel on the wire. So all that, the thing which is going on the wire is just the keystrokes, I mean the screen refreshes which are going up and down. So this was one of the key designs. We had it in place. We were doing it purely for like emergencies where nobody is able to reach office and we had to start an exchange. So we had the framework in place. So only thing is that time we had only said maximum not more than 5 to 10 people will require this kind of service to start an exchange in an extreme emergency. So, but since we had this working model in place, it was not very challenging for us to design a model. And the only thing is we had to replicate it fast. Like the number of licenses we required to put on the box, we had to procure those licenses and all this. So that was the time. And the good part is all the OEMs who were there with us, they supported us very well. So they also gave the licenses immediately without asking us even a question. Okay, let's start with the unlimited license. We'll see how to regularize it, how much you require. We see all that later. First, let us see whether we can deliver it. So I think from day one itself, in first week, we had 75% of the people working from home. In the second week, we had more than 95% people working from home. Today, we are 99% of the people are working from home. The people who have IT staff who have in office is purely the people who manage the data center physically. That means the people who require the hands and feet support in case of an emergency, in case of the power goes down, or if there is an AC to be put off and put on. I mean, these are all data center maintenance people, electrical power plant maintenance people, but nothing from an engineering team who would say, like, who would be doing controlling of the systems. All these people are working from home in an absolutely secured manner. And now, having worked like this for almost 4 to 5 months, people are realizing, why can't we continue like this forever? Okay. So it's completely mindset change. People have accepted this now. People are saying, why not this? Earlier, the same thing was considered a taboo. You say we should never do this. And now suddenly this whole paradigm shift has happened. I say, why can't we do this?
I think it's fantastically documented. Something which used to be considered as a taboo, suddenly it has been proved the reverse. And I think you harped a very interesting point. The scaling which you did from having 75% people working from home, then scaling it to 99%, within a few weeks. I think it's a testimony about the, BCP drills which you did, and even against all odds, despite not having a case study for this, you successfully moved into that. A fantastic, ideal case study for a stock exchange, and I'm very happy to hear this. Pavitra, coming back to you, did you see a rise in phishing attempts in your banking sector? And what are the kind of cyber risk mitigation strategies that you reinforced, within your banking environment?
Yeah, thank you, Varun, for giving me this opportunity to be part of this discussion. And yes, there is a surge in phishing attacks. As we all know, and from the expert analysis, we are able to identify that when compared to 2019, there is a surge of almost more than 600% rise in the phishing attack alone. So, and that too, especially during this pandemic situation of COVID-19. When it come to, especially from the banking sector, wherein the digital transformation channels being used much more when compared to other days, the people, fraudsters are even concentrating more on the customers, phishing mails in the name of KYC updation or for EMI moratorium, in this kind of sort of thing. They are reaching to the customers through SMS and emails and asking them, and they are convincing them in such a way that the people are ready to click on, or they are ready to follow the instructions which has been given to them. So, as you said, it is really alarming nowadays that even we were able to see that frauds concerned with the swiping off of the accounts is drastically has increased, and that is through SMS and phishing. Email is now left alone. Now everything is in button click in our mobile. So everything is coming in the as a link, and they are asking people to download that particular app. You want to see the cards will be blocked within a few days, and you won't be able to take money from your account. So people are, so in current scenario, people are reluctant to go to the branches or take money, or they are really, we are not sure when another lockdown might come or not. So in such situation, they are even hearing to the other person, and they are following the instructions which is being done. And when it comes to the phishing part, it is really very difficult for us to come with a strategy unless and until we give training, we give awareness programs to the customers as well as our employees. So for in when it is concerned about the employees, we have launched a red team exercise like phishing exercise. We are educating them not to click on this thing and see the email ID from where it has been originated. So all those sort of things is being done, and I think now more than 85% of the people are aware about all those things. But when it comes to general public, it is not the scenario. Even if banks are sending SMS to them not to share the OTP or card credentials and all to others, still people are following that, and people are, and about when we analyze, more than 95% of the fraud has happened in that way only. They are sharing their OTP. They are downloading the app which has been in from the link. So when it comes to phishing, the only technique we can follow is to educate the public, and for that we have to come up with, even we have uploaded certain videos wherein we tell them what are the do's and don'ts, and what how they have to follow. Don't download the mobile app or UPI app from play only from Play Store. Don't download it from any other place. So these are the things we have to educate the general public, eh, so that we can come stop them from all these things.
I think it's a very valid point. I think you mentioned two things. Number one is 600% rise in phishing attacks during these COVID times. You are saying that internally people are still 85% convinced, and you have a lot of work to do in terms of awareness of the general public. Coming back to you, Hitesh, I have an interesting question flowing from the discussion that we had from Mr. Karsi and Bhavita. What is it that Checkpoint is doing, in helping the clients in the new normal? Okay, and is there anything specific what is happening in the BFSI sector in terms of awareness or any initiatives that Checkpoint is doing from the security perspective?
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Varun, for giving me the opportunity. So, I think Mr. Kasi very well mentioned, he put across very valid thing that, people have started working from home. The first and foremost is 90% of the employees are now working from home, which means that you need to have a solid remote access system in place, right? Otherwise, you won't be, your firewall, your systems won't be able to take the load of so many people coming from VPN services, number one. So our first and foremost action from global perspective is we help all our customers to set up VPN services as and when they needed. We also provided them the license in terms of 3 months, and sometimes we've extended to 4 months also. So that is the first step that we did, because we know that the continuity to the data, it has to be virtually available at any point, anytime, right? So they have to have access to the resources, and the only thing that can make them enable is having access to remote services, number one. So setting up remote access services to customers was first initiative. Second is we are also working on an initiative called Cloudify. We know that most of the organizations have realized that having a data center based applications or servers won't be good enough. So they might have to look at some of the applications moving to the cloud. Now, in that case, also we are helping our customers to either help them to begin the journey to the cloud by telling them do's and don'ts in terms of cloud security, compliance, governance, things like that, by educating our customer. Because we know that there are many banks, there are many organizations, even in case of insurance sector, are looking at cloud as an option, public cloud as an option to as an alternate way of having access to the resources, company applications, and also making the same thing available for their end customers as well. So these are a couple of initiatives that we took just to ensure that all our customers are well taken care in the crisis situation.
Thanks. What I could clearly make out from your synopsis is remote access. Okay, cloudifying the applications and stuff like that. Coming back to you, Kasi, like the banking environment, you are also into, a massive financial environment. Do you see fraud attempts happening more frequently now in the post-COVID times? And associated with that, I have one more question. Has your expectation from the tech security partners changed during these times?
Yes, I would say the number of attacks have increased. Like Babita said, we are also been seeing quite a rise in number of phishing attempts and all those things. But luckily, we have been able to stop it at the perimeter level, and because of the various security initiatives which were taken a couple of years back, we were good to in this area that we could protect so much of that. But we have definitely seen a rise in this kind of, not only it's a phishing attack, there could be so many DDoS types of an attacks. People who are trying to check on our websites. We were trying to do some robots on our websites. There are so many things which people try, because they know, okay, you are not in office, so you might not be 100% effective. So that is the time for them also to try and do this. So this is typically more than tech game, it's a mind game. I would say you have to play smarter with them. So that's how we also do it. We also keep checking. We do user behavior analysis also. So we are knowing that it's the users who are working. So we also do some analysis of who works in first shift, second shift, round the clock. So these kind of things have become now more pronounced and more aggressively monitored. See, earlier this was all nice to have frills, but now these things have become new norms to check. So all this is like I was saying, we had the technologies in place, but effectively utilization of these technologies have come in these times. So that is what I would say. That's one good thing which has come out, is all the technologies which are deployed are being used very, very effectively in these last 3-4 months. Like, I would put it that way. So it was not that we never had this technology. It was there, but yes, people are too casual. Okay, what is so great? What's so great? But now they're realizing the value of that investment. So it was the good that we made this investment a couple of years back. So it was not a big rush for us that we had to change too many things or tighten too many things. It was just normal business as usual. And the only challenge which we faced was to keep training people. And this is constant thing which we'll have to keep doing. It is not that we are now trying to make some training programs every month. See, earlier it was like once a year, then it was said twice a year. But now with this, people keep forgetting. Okay, wo to pehla bola tha. Like, now is it still valid? So we have to keep doing this kind of things month on month and try to do something or the innovative ways. And we have seen our own, we do our own internal drills multiple times. Okay, and we do see the percentage of people getting succumbed. It's definitely now on the decline, because there are some counseling courses also. There are some actions also taken against a few people. So we have to keep doing this. You have to be more stricter with the people, so that is no longer chalta hai attitudes. Like, because a lot of time earlier we were very polite, very soft. Okay, like, let us go once. But now after repeated things, if the errors are coming, we are now also thinking of taking actions against our own people also, for any.
I think this is a fantastic case study. You're actually taking the benefit of deploying the technologies and getting benefit out of it. I think this is a very good summary. I quite liked it. And you also mentioned about user behavioral analytics, which is playing the mind game. I think they were very powerful, learnings from this workshop. So, Bhavita, coming back to you, especially in the banking environment, we see a lot of adoption to digital banking. Mobile banking has become the new norm. I think nobody goes to the bank. Everybody tries to do a lot of things from the mobile phone also. What are the good practices that you would recommend for us to follow, and what are the things that we should not actually do from the security perspective? What are the things that we should always keep in mind?
Yeah, like most of the things as Cesar has told, it is a mind game. It's the people, fraudsters are always behind us, and they are just waiting for a chance or a thing to happen, which way they can convince us. Similarly, when we come to a mobile app or internet banking or a e-commerce site where we do the shopping and all this site, we have to keep in mind if someone is watching us. The technology is someone is given by human people, and someone is every website or every page has a eye behind. So never, as a CISO, I will recommend each person, never ever save your password in the website. It is for ease, our ease, we are doing it. By every time we might be going to the same site for doing some shopping or some kind of thing, and for that ease we might save our card number, we might save our details in that. So I always recommend never ever do that. So only thing is we have to type and see what happens is, even in the case of a simple smishing or a wishing call which is being raised, what I could analyze is that people are doing now more into Flipkarts and Amazons and all, and they are getting the call once they does some shopping, and after half an hour or 1 hour these people are getting a call asking that, ma'am, you have done this kind of a shopping in this site, and you have been, and since you are a very good customer of this, and even they trace if it is done by through a card, they will be noting the first 5 digits of the card, and they will be able to analyze that whether it is a Visa card or a Rupee card. So they will be starting a conversation with that. So up to all these fraudsters are highly sophisticated technology. They are having high sophisticated technology than what we use, and their brains are so well that even from that they will think and say, oh, ma'am, this is the way. So and we also, yeah, I'm using a Visa card or I'm using a Rupee card. Yes, ma'am, you have done this transaction this day. Yeah, I have done it. So you are getting a cashback. Just what you have to do is you just click on the link and you just need to it is registered. One 4-digit number will be coming. It is a confirmation mail or confirmation reference number. You just spell that number, then people will tell that, and ultimately the money is gone. And one more thing which I have noticed during this pandemic situation is that money is not fully swiped out from the account. They are not taking full control of the account. What they are doing is this transaction is utilized for some other e-com transaction. Moving it to so if I am having a 40,000 or 50,000 balance account, this transaction might be only 1,500 or 600 rupees a transaction, which I may not notice. By the time I realize that, the transaction would have happened. So all these kinds of tactics has been played around by the cyber fraudsters, which we should be always, we should, now I used to think like a fraudster. So how they might think, how they might use this. So without that, we cannot come to a solution, or we cannot give a solution for that. So my request to each one is that never save any details in the website, never disclose your OTP or card details to anyone. So this should be a life practice kind of thing. I always say cybersecurity is nothing more. It is the practice, how we follow. We are not going to save everything. We are not going to share our password to anyone. Even if it is our close friend, don't share it. Just make it as a policy. That is my lifestyle. And whenever I'm leaving my desk workspace, I'll lock my computer. So these things should be a part of our lifestyle. And if it cybersecurity is nothing but a life practice. That is what I always tell my colleagues.
It's a very interestingly put. Even I save my card details, and just give the OTP for doing the transaction in a faster way. I should be now worried with this discussion which Bhavita has mentioned. Coming back to you, Hitesh, you know, do you see, security companies are all niche security companies. Do you see some uniqueness in the cyber risk happening right now in the post-COVID times? And is there any update from your side for the CISOs and the senior CIOs of the banking and finance industry?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think there are quite a few things that we have noticed. So Checkpoint has this research team, who keeps on looking at what's happening around us globally as well. And we just published a 6-monthly, security report. There are a few things which you've noticed and I would like to highlight here as well. First and foremost is, as Babita ma'am mentioned, the increase in the phishing attacks that we have seen a lot happening, because now what the attackers are doing right now, they are using COVID as a theme to initiating an attack. The mail's body would look like something related to COVID, and we all are very eager to know what's happening in the world, right? Whether the vaccine is coming, not coming, what's happening other parts of the world. So that's the reason people fall prey to those kind of mails and then accidentally start clicking on this information. Number one. Second thing, we have also seen that there are domains which gets registered under COVID-19. Okay, some of them are a website which talks about having donation, some payments, right? So those kind of activities also have increased, which we have seen those registrations have all of a sudden gone up. And third is, I can give an example of the ransomware attacks. Right, ransomware is something which is like a double extortion. First and foremost, the attackers will find an easy way to target the endpoints, and then they will ask you for a money for your own data. Right, so it's kind of a ransom asking for my own data, which means that there are a lot of new things which the attackers have found as a part of. And I'll tell you the reason why it is happening, because people are working from home. Most of the time, the endpoints are not very secure, which means that they can get compromised very easily, and attackers know this piece. So if you don't have a strongest endpoint defense system, self-defending kind of system which can protect you against some of these advanced ransomware targeted attacks, people will get into those kind of mistakes and errors. So I think these are the things that we observe, and we always keep our customers updated about what they should do, what they should not do.
So Hitesh, I will take one point from your this thing. You come out with this 6-monthly report. Do you share it with your customers and the extended fraternity?
Absolutely, and it is posted on our website as well, and we share it with our customers as well. We do.
Okay, so I'm saying as a gesture, will you send us the last report which was got published, during this COVID times to the three of us, so that we can go through that? It will really be helpful.
Absolutely, my pleasure. I'll do that.
I think this is an interesting point, which you mentioned. I'll be really looking forward to this kind of a feedback where I'm sure a lot of research has gone in, finding it out. Coming back to you, Kersey, from the security perspective, what are the things, which keeps you awake at midnight? What is the fear that goes into the CIO's mind for a Bombay Stock Exchange?
Honestly, I stopped fearing because otherwise I would never sleep. Because I trust my technologies, we trust it, and we can do up to a level that we can do. See, and we know, many times, again, I would say, let's put it this way: security is something that you should be confident, and if you know your businesses well, and you know your infrastructure, you know your architecture well, you know how to protect it. So once you know that, you are a little more comfortable. I would not say complacent, but you're more comfortable. You know what your business, how you have protected it, because the outsiders don't know what your business is. Most of the times, people where they lose their sleep is where if I were dependent on my OEMs to protect me, then I would not be able to sleep. Okay. But if I know my infrastructure, I know my ecosystem very well, and I know what things are placed where, yes, we'll be more or less comfortable. Yes, we are doing it, but yes, we have to be agile every time because every day in the morning we check the health every day. While it's like we do the checks more than we do our daily prayers, like no. So like sometimes we get this. "Hey, if I would have prayed so much, I would have anyway things would have worked well. Like so, we go the other way now.
I,
So we
I,
keep doing.
I think it's a fantastic way of putting, uh, people, process, and technology. I think you harped on all three of them. You talked about technology, you talked about confidence on the people, knowing the architecture well in terms of, giving a good night's sleep. I think it's a fantastic pointer as to what one should do and what control one should have within your environment. Thanks very much. Coming back to you, Vavita, what are the top three things that comes to your mind, when you talk about, protections around in a digital banking framework for your architecture?
Yeah, when it comes to, as Hitesh was mentioning about the ransomware attack and DDoS kind of attack. So these are the different kinds of attack malwares. All these things are in market earlier also. It is not that just because of this COVID situation, everything has popped up. It is already there. Only thing the frequency of these attacks on corporates or organizations has increased during this pandemic period. So as a bank or most of the organizations are now well equipped with, especially after the cyber security framework which was put forward by RBI, all the banks are now with a very good infrastructure to manage all these situations. So when it comes to a ransomware attack or a ransom thing, how the data are getting encrypted, how our endpoints are there. Endpoints are now so secured that not even exe or without the knowledge of our security team, nothing can be moved in that. For that, every day I'm getting a lot of complaints from my colleagues, but I say this is this is for you only, I am doing this. So I have to go with that. But tomorrow, now they understand. When one more thing I would like to say, like what Kasi sir had completely told the things, like when we have gone for a VPN connection, when bank, as far as bank is concerned, we never thought about a work from home kind of a situation or bring your own device. So the lockdown was suddenly put in place that we were even not even having enough infrastructures to be given to the people, so that we allowed them to use their own PCs for accessing the bank's network. So at that time, I was confident enough to give that as a CISO, because I know I have asked them to do certain things, which by which they cannot tomorrow onwards make use of their system as their own system. They have to come back to me to install something. So
System controls everything, right? They're powerful people, right, in the organization.
yeah.
Now, back to you, Hitesh. Final question.
Yeah.
What are the top two or three future innovation which is happening in the security framework? What is it that Checkpoint is doing?
Okay, so we have already announced long back our Infinity framework, which basically talks about unifying all the architectures under one umbrella and having a common foundation for information exchange to happen, to give all our customers the benefit of all the technologies put together under single management window. Just to extend that solution to another level, now we have also added cloud security as a part of the announcement, where we are talking about how can you unify the workload and container security. Okay, talking about more for public cloud services offering, and also taking care of cloud security posture management. Then comes the another very interesting piece is that how we can add IoT security, right? Something which is very critically that we see what is happening around us. So these are some new announcements which we are making and ensuring that our customers get the benefit of it. Of course, within the cloud itself, we are adding a lot of announcement to secure on the edge side, on the perimeter side, helping all our customers to get more and more applications migrated to the cloud with more of confidence level.
Thanks very much. Thanks, Hitesh. And my sincere thanks to Mr. Kasi Gavadia from Bombay Stock Exchange. My sincere thanks to BP Babita from CSB Bank Limited. And many thanks to Hitesh Pathak coming on short notice and joining this conversation. Thank you very much, and looking forward to engaging with you again. Welcome Kunal Dhingra, Head IT for L&T Infotech, and Harish Kumar, Enterprise Business Head for APAC Sales Checkpoint, for a fireside chat. The topic of discussion is preventing the unknown, reimagining cybersecurity. So for the outside-in view, my first question goes to Kunal. So Kunal, we all had this sudden pandemic and everybody started working from home. So what are the top 2 or 3 challenges that you faced from the security perspective in your organization, and how did you overcome it?
Sure. Thank you, Barun, for this opportunity discussion. I think we could go long way together on this particular topic, and this seems to be very small, but I think basis the current situation, this is even more complicated than we can think of. Major challenges that we ended up into, I would say we could categorize into few segments. One would be related to end devices, second would be the network, and then there would be a continuous demand of protection and the threats that are still open. During pandemic, this was the time when we had maximum attempts of ransomwares coming to India. I would categorize into these 3 major buckets, which is again end devices control, the network management, and a continuous protection. These 3 were extremely important.
I think it's a very interesting insight. The other day I was talking to a banking customer, and they said that there's a 600% increase in terms of phishing attacks. So I can well imagine, and you are endorsing the same point of view. So coming back to you, Harish, we have been seeing a mushroom of niche players in the security market. Okay, so what is the unique value proposition of Checkpoint, with respect to this security standpoint from the customer's viewpoint, especially from enterprise customers' viewpoint?
So that's a very, very interesting question, Barun. Usually, I get asked around questions around, what is Checkpoint portfolio and so on and so forth. But the question which you asked, if you really look at it, even Gartner has close to around 8 or 9 categories listed under the cybersecurity window, right? Which essentially means for an organization to deploy, they have to look at 8 or 9 deployments, and these 8 or 9 categories will also have their subcategories. Now, it's for a single organization to put all these pieces together and then manage it is a Herculean task. So this is like, 8 by 8 matrix. So which is like, at any time, any incident happens. So you have an 8 by 8 matrix, which is 64 dots in front of you for you to control, right? And God forbid if you have integrated 2 or 3 more products together, because today's world is API driven, we are looking at 8 factorial, which is some 40,000 dots, right? Which is a huge complexity for any organization to handle. So, Checkpoint has always believed in, consolidating and preventing the unknown, right? Now, most of the technologies which are deployed today is post facto. They try to bring it as real time as possible with deployments like SCAM, SOCs, etc. But what Checkpoint traditionally has been believing is that if you can prevent the unknown, right, then you are better off in handling your incidents, right? So in that way, Checkpoint has wide suite of products cutting across all the technologies. We have a product for SOC, we have product for endpoint, we have product offering which we lead in cloud, which we lead in network firewall. So when you consolidate under Checkpoint umbrella into a single management, your ability to respond to any threat is quite fast.
I think Harish, well put together. I think most of the customers today, especially Indian enterprise customers, they look at the Gartner Hype Cycle, the Gartner Magic Quadrant, and I've had similar kind of experiences. When I've gone to sell myself in L&T. So coming back to you, Kunal, from your industry perspective, and if you classify your industry as L&T Infotech in IT/ITES segment. Okay, what are the typical security challenges that you face as an end user? What are the kind of security challenges you face?
Yeah, so for a IT/ITES company, biggest challenge is that we do not work for our own company. We typically outsource our services to hundreds and hundreds of our customers. And we not only need to abide with our own security standards, policies, we would be abiding with all the client-driven security policies. And because of majority of our stuff are client-driven, we would be enforced whether or not we like those international compliances standard like NIST or GDPR or any other country-specific problem statements. On top of it, the biggest challenge that we face, because there are multiple clients, we always need to provide them a single pane of glass where we would manage, maintain all their security related concerns, all their network related concerns, all their service portfolio concerns. And how would we not only secure our enterprise, but also ensure that the enterprises for which we are working for are secure, because we would have our networks extended to them and their networks extended to us. Any infection on either side of the world could be catastrophic.
I think it is very, very well articulated, both for your internal requirement as well as for your external requirement, and global norms, global standards, and how to maintain all the checks and balances to protect not only your organization, but the organizations which you are serving. I think it's a brilliantly captured thought process. So coming back to you, Harish, a quick one. Okay. From the perspective of digital transformation, okay, there are a huge amount of threats which are actually happening right now, and especially during the pandemic, which we get to hear. You will be having your NOC, you will be having your SOC and stuff like that. Have you seen such threats within your center of excellence by virtue of which you are doing something absolutely new to protect your customers?
Absolutely, Varunda. We have a very, very large wing, which is called a CPR, Checkpoint Research, right? And their job is to look at how the attacks are spanning across the country. And, sometime I would be glad to show some of our clients how they capture it as a live event. And you can see from which country the threat is coming and going into which country, right? And there are state actors and the non-state actors in this, right? And with the digital transformation, what has happened is that there is an enormous amount of pressure on the CIOs or the CXOs like Kunal to go ahead and deploy something at a much faster pace than what we are used to, right? And that's what digital transformation has brought in. And the wonderful case in point is Capital One, a bank in America. Yesterday they got penalized for $80 million for moving into cloud in a very hasty manner and not securing the cloud properly, right? And so these cases are quite common, and it is increasing in the numbers, right? And the Checkpoint Research is very, very deeply involved in finding out vulnerabilities, not only in part of digital transformation. We also, for example, yesterday announced a vulnerability on Qualcomm chipset. So if you are using an Android phone, there is 40% of the world's Android phone today are having a security flaw using which somebody can attack, make you as a DDoS attacker, right? And the only solution for that is to go back and surrender your phone and buy a new phone. So Checkpoint Research, very closely works in all these spheres, tries to understand where are the actual threats happening and help the overall community at large.
I think it's very very deftly put across the CPR. So coming back to you, especially during the pandemic times, how do you choose a technology partner, and especially with respect to Checkpoint, what is your expectation from large technology partners around security like Checkpoint?
So for any organization nowadays, and specifically in the current scenarios where our reach physically in office is pretty much limited. Our reach to our employees is also limited to being virtually available. So first basic need would be, okay, everybody can do security, but could you be able to give me a single pane of glass? Can you give me a clear visibility, not only being reactive, but also being proactive? Every IT company today would have a SOC or NOC, but as explained by Harish earlier, majority of these functions are reactive functions. The incident happens, somebody responds back. But could Checkpoint send me an alert in advance that this is something happening in US, and we know you have customers in US, we know you have a couple of offices in US, and we see a couple of your instances of cloud in US region. This is our recommendation that you should plug this gap in next 12 hours. This is the rate on which this infection is increasing. And we recommend you to put extra resources there, or maybe on your cloud firewall, just increase these resources so that when the processing needs to be done, when somebody is doing a DDoS, you can manage it.
I think, so Harish, you have your neck on the block if you don't do any proactive work. So I think it's a very well articulated as to what the customer wants today, not reactive, but proactive. Coming back to you, Harish, there's a tremendous amount of, user awareness needs, not only to a particular organization and the employees within the organization, but in general, okay? For example, your go-to-market can be through the channel partners, for example, okay? And you as an OEM, what are the things that you are doing, to increase the awareness around security and avoid all the malpractices going around it? What is Checkpoint doing about it?
So, just to, before I answer your question, and then just to address the previous point, yes, we do a lot of proactive things with customers like Kunal and try to keep them as happy as possible. But, coming and addressing your question, Barunda, on, what do we do with respect to the awareness, right? See, cybersecurity awareness to a large extent has increased in our country, right? The current pandemic has actually, thrown a lot of light around, spotlight on the cybersecurity space, and people have become, more or less educated, and they are seeing the breaches happening in the real time, right? And the Indian industry is nowhere. And just a month and a half back, we saw government actually coming out and, giving a advisory that, there could be state actors who are not so friendly with India, trying to attack some of the key organizations, right? And as you rightly mentioned, that there's been a 600% increase in the overall attack. So in terms of vulnerabilities, I think more or less the organizations have understood. Where I think Checkpoint is helping all of them is, one, we are working with a lot of the state data centers, smart cities. We are working with, a lot of these public utility companies to ensure right from their endpoint to the SCADA devices to a IoT device in their environment is sufficiently protected using a single technology, right? And, we ourselves had some time back had an attack on the power sector, right? Which brought the complete power grid down for a few hours in the country. So, there is an increased awareness, and we are working with most of the clients to ensure that, they are sufficiently protected, number one. Number two, we are also through our partnerships with higher learning institutions. We are part of the Security Academy program, and we help, building the comprehensive cybersecurity curriculum to students. And that's where you can actually go and help the community and ensure that the cybersecurity needs of Digital India is well taken care of by us.
Thank you. Just going back to Kunal. Kunal, anything else which you'd like to mention as a best practice to, for the CIOs of your community, a couple of best practices which you think can come in handy?
Yeah, so I think for best practices per se, the only thing we need to ensure and keep coherence of, it's not only about security of your network. Nowadays, specifically, I'll talk about my industry. In the IT industry, people were predominantly desktop driven. In last 4 or 5 months, whole of industry has done a huge capex to make sure employees are productive from home. But do we have unlimited capex to give everybody laptops? May or may not be. Few companies may have, but few companies may have a struggle on that. So companies are opening up BYOD. Now, if you open a BYOD, you're talking about any device, anywhere, any form factor, and then the security has to be any. You do not know where the egress would come, and you do not know where the outgress would be. You do not know what are threat vectors you are working with. So everybody in the fraternity has to keep their eyes and ears both open.
Yes, I think it's a very, very valid point, and really appreciate your taking time out. I would like to thank Kunal Dhingra, Head IT of L&T Infotech, and Harish Kumar for taking time out to join this fireside chat. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot. Thanks, Kunal. Thanks, Barun.
Thanks, Harish.
For being here, and stay safe.
Thank you.
Bye.